go. All right, party people, welcome to Saturday. Austin is on his way. He's not quite here yet. And actually, he's on a really cool trip right now, seeing the Final Four. Let me get him over this link one more time just in case, because I think I may have mistyped his email address. But we have a lot to unpack and uncover today. Oh, I think I heard him just pop in. Hold on. There he is. There he is.
What's up, man?
What's up, dude? How you doing?
Well, I'm in New Orleans at this beautiful condo. And look, I'm having challenges with the Wi-Fi because, of course, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens. It's New Orleans. That's what happens. Have you had a beignet? I have to ask the question. Have you had a beignet?
Anyway, here we are.
Yeah. Have you had a
I'm
beignet
excited
yet?
to talk to you.
Cool. All right. You making it over there?
Yeah, I'm making it. I'm actually trying to figure out, is there like a way to turn up this volume more? Anyway, no, yeah, we're doing awesome, man. We people are already up cooking breakfast, Mike. We're in great shape.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, speaking of being up and getting moving, I just had a Zoom with my sister, my brother-in-law, the new baby, all of it. Oh, dude, it was so good. It was so good. Let me see if I got a picture. There we go.
Do we have a name yet?
Oliver.
Yep.
And my mom's already got the jokes coming. And she's like, wow, that was a twist.
Nice.
Yep. So she's doing her thing as she does. Yeah.
Nice. Love it.
No, he's nice. He's a beautiful baby. 9 pounds. Already eating 4 times his stomach size. I mean, it's the guy's ginormous, and he's just getting bigger. He's already outgrown all the stuff that they had originally gotten him in 2 days.
For sure.
Yeah. But
I'm
anyway,
my headphones. Give me one second.
Yeah. Anyway, we got a heck of a lot of ground to cover today. I gotta tell you guys, there has been a lot. I'm actually looking at my notes. There have been a lot of economic changes, a lot of shifts going on over the last 30 days. I feel like we almost have to go back to a weekly because this has been moving around so much. So let's start with what is on everybody's minds, what people keep on asking me about, and that is interest rates. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, interest rates are in fact on the rise. If you had good morning, that's nice. If you have not been watching the market, I'm going to tell you right now, interest rates are in fact on the rise, guys. We've already had them go up 3 times just in the last 60 days. So back in November, December, we were looking at an average of, let's call it a 3% interest rate, somewhere in that range, right? 2.75 to 3.12 or 3.15. Today, the rate of the day is eclipsing 5%. 5%. And that is a huge difference between what it was just 60 and 90 days ago, right? Now, how this is impacting the real estate market is a couple different ways. One, every time the percentage points go up, it impacts buyers' affordability roughly 10%, right? For each percentage, for each point up. So from 3 to 4, 10%, 4 to 5, 10%. And what that really looks like is what a buyer, not so much what a buyer that is not going to necessarily raise their payment, but it's going to lower how much they can afford or how much a buyer can afford, right? So here's what this looks like. So 60 days ago, let's say interest rates are 3%, right? And I'm looking for a house roughly $500,000. At 4%, the payment is not going to go up, because most buyers are going to go to whatever they're comfortable with a payment, and that number is not necessarily going to go up so they can get to the $500,000 house. They're going to take the $500,000 price tag and bring it down to $450,000, and then that payment remains the same. So, as an example, on a $300,000 house, 90 days ago, that payment was roughly $1,215. Today, and I'm just talking about principal and interest. Today, that same payment is eclipsing $1,600. Literally, this is what's happening. Now, what does this mean for sellers? What it means for sellers is buyer affordability has gone down almost 20%. It also means that we've got a whole bunch of buyers with locked in interest rates in that 3.5, or 4 that they need to get a house under contract sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we're seeing this ourselves, where last month we were hired by 51 sellers to get their homes onto the market. And the reason why that was such a big increase over what we're normally seeing is because sellers have been watching the market just like everybody else and saying, oh, shoot, now is the time. Today is the day. I've got a whole bank of buyers right here where their affordability will go down by the end of April because their rate locks are all going to come up. And we're talking about a quarter point or a half point, bringing that back in. Nominal fee, a couple $100 to $1,000, right? And I'm not saying that $1,000 is no money or not a lot of money, because it is. But if you're a buyer and you've got to pay another $500 or $1,000 to relock or extend your rate lock, not the end of the world. When we're talking about if you're locked in at a 3, let's say 3.5 or even a 4% interest rate, but now you've got to relock at a 5, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to bring that rate back down or relock out, right? Because those rates don't exist anymore. So from a buyer's perspective, we are seeing a tremendous amount of activity. I mean, especially second half of last month. I mean, Austin, you can attest to it. We were very back end month heavy loaded with our buyers scrambling to get into something because they know that their rate locks are coming up. And by mid-May, there are not going to be buyers on the market, not at all, that can get a 3.5, or 4% interest rate. So Mr. Seller, or anybody that's considering selling their home on this call right now, I would highly advise calling ourselves or your real estate agent and saying, hey, I need to bring my house to market, because right now, if you're considering selling anytime between now and June, speed is going to be a key factor in getting the highest price for you. Because again, going forward, that same buyer that can afford your house and they can pay $500,000, they can't pay $500,000 60 days from now. They could pay $425, $435, $410, because when a buyer's approved, they're not actually approved for a number, they're approved for a payment. And then whatever that payment is, the current interest rate of the day is applied to it, and that's the number. Right? That's the number that a buyer buys at, because it's all about monthly payment, right? I mean, let's look at it this way. Does anybody remember what the actual down to the penny sticker price of their car is? No, but you know what your monthly payment is. And I'll tell you what, if someone was willing to give me a Lamborghini at $200 a month, I'd be driving a Lamborghini right now. Because we're talking about payments. That's where people live. Anyway, what do you got on that, Austin? I mean, I've been kind of just going off on interest rates and what's been going on there. We can't hear you. Well, he's fiddling around with it, and he'll get back on in just a second. Try logging out and logging back in. There we go. That might work. Anyway, while he's going off on that tangent, or logging out and logging back in, I do want to go over the other big kind of piece of news that has been going on. This past Friday, we also received the new jobs report because it was April 1st, and the first Friday of the month, we always get the new jobs report, right, from the Department of Labor and Economic Growth, blah blah blah, right? Surprise or not a surprise? I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you think this is a surprise or not a surprise what this jobs report is showing. We saw jobs growth of 431,000 jobs last month. So there were 431,000 people hired last month nationwide, which I got to be honest, I was not expecting. I was expecting the number to be a little bit closer to the 200s because of the number of people that have been leaving their jobs and just deciding not to go back to work for a little bit. They're trying to reevaluate where their life is going, what's happening, what's going on. But now what we're seeing is the people that have been leaving their jobs in September, October, November, and kind of taking a little bit of a hiatus, looking for that next job. They're now going back to work and they're getting reemployed and they're getting in with that next employer. So that 431 number is actually very strong. It was not expected. And I'm gonna also share this little bit with you. That marks the 12th straight month 12 straight month that we've seen job growth in excess of 400,000 per month, which is amazing. It's an amazingly strong economy. It's actually stronger today than it was pre-pandemic. And here's what I mean by that. So unemployment is now ticked down to 3.6%. 3.6%, which is pretty much zero, right? Because one thing we know is that there are a certain number of people that are just going to opt out of the job market entirely and just choose to not work for a while, or work part-time and not full-time, or whatever that looks like, right? Which is amazing. Now, in addition to that, what's being released is there are now 1.8 jobs for every person that is not employed. 1.8 jobs. 1.8 jobs, guys. Think about this. So, and this is where this gets really interesting for me. If you're in a job and you have not seen the wage growth that you've been looking for, now is the time, today's the day, get your ducks in a row to either ask for that raise or start looking around, right? Ask for that raise or start looking around. And here's why. Okay, so of the people that did make a job switch, another piece of key data, key information, of the people that did make a job switch, and I'll take any guesses on this, guess what percentage more they're getting paid in the new job versus the old job. I'd like to see a number in there. Somebody guess. Somebody guess how much of a wage increase they received by going from one job to another on average. Okay. Oh, somebody's got to have a number. Somebody's got to have a guess. Suzette, you're very close. You're very close. Here's the guess I've got so far. Up 25%. That's a close one. 20%. That's pretty close. 20%. That's another real close one. All right, guys, I'm going to put it out there. According to the Department of Labor, people that have switched jobs, the next job that they went into, they left the job and then they went and applied somewhere else in their specialty, whatever it is that they do for work. The number is 31%. 31%. And there's two other correlating numbers with this. So when someone has decided to leave job A and go to job B is willing to pay 31% more on average. Well, there's three numbers actually go along with this. That's number one. Number one. That was right. Number two, we're at 7.9% inflation. I think we're going to see that number go between because we don't have the inflation number yet for March, but I think that number is going to end up somewhere between 7.7 and 8.1% as far as inflation goes. I think a lot of that's going to be driven by the gas prices at this point because real estate prices are driving some of that. Of course, gas prices going up early in the month. They're starting to come down, but gas prices going up early in the month are going to drive a lot of that just to keep that number in that 7.7 to 8.2 range. That's my prediction there. Now, the 31% is way eclipsing the inflation number, which is great. Over the last 12 months, the average wage growth has been 4.6%. 4.6%. The average person the average person who did not switch jobs or did not ask for a raise, because there are a lot of people out there that don't ask for a raise, 4.6% wage growth. Now, here's the third number, and this is an interesting number as well. The average person that asked for a raise received an 18% raise. And that's a great question. Suzette, that is nationwide, and here in Michigan, we are seeing the same numbers. No doubt. And especially because during the 2007, 8, and 9, when we're looking specifically, if you look at some of the micro markets like skilled labor, I'm talking about electricians, I'm talking about carpenters, pipe fitters, all of those skilled trades, we have a deficit of those right now. So those numbers are actually higher for that. Okay. And the reason being is because when Michigan hit the recession, we hit it back in 07, 8, we hit it first and we hit it harder than many of the other states out there, right? When that happened, we lost almost 30% of our skilled trade and skilled labor to other states, and in some cases, even other countries. There are people that went and worked abroad in Germany. Some went to the Middle East on contract, those types of things, and they just never came back to Michigan. I had a high number of clients that we were moving because they had lost their job here. Let's say they were working as a contractor with Pulte, and then Pulte decided to do a 36-month build freeze, which is what they did. They was actually shorter than that, but let's say they did a 36-month bill freeze. If you're an electrician, you need to go do electrical work somewhere. And when nobody was hiring back in 07, 8, 9, right? But then we had the Florida economy start recovering. We had the Texas economy start recovering. We had, the Denver market starting to light on fire before Michigan did. As an electrician or a plumber or a contractor, Phoenix was another one of the metros. A lot of families moved and then never came back. Right. So we were at an extreme deficit in those areas, in that skilled labor kind of camp. Let's just put a pin on that one. Right. So here is my advice. If you have not received any sort of an increase, or let's say the increase, the wage increases is at or below, let's say 10%. Now is the time, today's the day, with this tight labor market, to start looking into, okay, do I choose option A or do I choose option B? Option A is, should I be looking at other companies? Should I be looking at other companies? Option B is, should I stay and fight for some sort of an increase here? Right? Because we do have to combat inflation. Inflation is a real thing, and it's a real thing really affecting families. I mean, every time I go to the pump and I see something that says $4.30, come on, we all know that is a real number that's affecting us on a day-to-day basis. And it doesn't seem like paying, I mean, it does seem like it because you see it at the pump, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily feel like it, or it's getting more normalized now that it's been a couple of weeks to see a $4 number on a gas pump. But it's not just that $4 number on the gas pump. It's the $4 number on the gas pump. It's the 75 cents more for a carton of eggs. It's the almost full dollar more for milk than it was 2 years ago. It's the beef increasing 30% in cost, bacon increasing almost 20% in cost. Like, all of these little micro costs are death by 1,000 cuts, right? So it's not just one thing. Like, if it was only we had to pay $20 a month more at the pump, it would not be backbreaking for the average American. I mean, yes, I'm not saying $20 is not a lot of money, but I'm saying if it's only $20 and that's the only cost that increased, it wouldn't be necessarily that bad. You know what I mean? But it's not. It's not just $20 at the pump. It's $20 at the pump plus $20 at the grocery store plus $20 here, $20 there, and then everything else. I mean, even look at Uber and Lyft. They've got surcharges put in right now. They've increased their rates overall so that their drivers can receive a little bit more to cover the gas that's going in the car, because they had started having issues where with Uber and Lyft, their drivers were starting to drop out and saying, hey, the price of gas is higher than what I'm earning running my Uber and running my Lyft business. And that had been an ongoing problem, which is no good. So option number one looks like this. Option number one looks like, if I'm going to look for another job, well, first we have to make the decision. Are we going to look for a different job? And the question that I would ask myself, and to keep up, Austin, we're talking about the 30% wage growth we've seen when people have gone from job A to job B. We were talking about the 4.6% overall wage growth in the last 12 months. And then we're talking about the 18% wage growth we saw when people went and asked for raises, right? But the number one thing I would definitely ask myself is, do I love what I do? Is this the company that I enjoy working for? How's the quality of life of the company? How's the leadership of the company? Is this a good place, or is this not a good place? Like, literally, it comes down to that, right? Because there are toxic work cultures. We've all lived in them at some point. Well, I want to say we all, but some of us are blessed to have not lived in them. But enough of us have lived in them to know that, hey, if I'm making a few bucks more, it's not worth it. Because how you're treated at work is important. And here's the reason why. And for all the kids on the call, when you have your own kids, and Austin, you can probably attest to this because you've got kids, and so does my sister, and so does my brother-in-law, and all the things. You're spending, let's call it 1/3 of your life doing whatever it is that you're doing as a job, right? When you get home at night, your interactions with your family, your spouse, your kids, and everything are directly affected by what happened that first 8 hours of the day. You just can't, I mean, it's just human nature. We can't just switch a light switch and just shift it off. So if we're getting consistently yelled at work, or belittled at work, or treated poorly, or whatever that looks like, it's extremely hard, especially over time, to just switch that off. Tell me I'm right, guys. Anybody here that has been in a toxic work culture before, tell me I'm right, tell me I'm wrong. If you can switch it off, I'd like to know how. Give me some feedback on this theory. But sometimes it's just not worth, the juice isn't worth the squeeze if you can do the same job at another company for, let's say, the same payment or even slightly less, just for the quality of life, right? I got Suzette in here. Thank you, Suzette. I appreciate it. Now, if you make the decision that, okay, maybe there's a different work culture that's better, and I do want to shoot my shot for that higher wage, now you got to start looking out on sites like the Indeeds, what do you call it, Monster.com, all of those other sites, and then as well, headhunters. I'm getting a couple of more. Yep, I'm with you. And then headhunters are absolutely going bananas right now, looking for people to headhunt for. Okay. So if you're in let's call it a white collar, more of a professional designation, somewhere in the corporate world, headhunters are looking for you. There are many of them in Southeast Michigan on a local level. There are many of them on a national level. My advice is pick 3 or 4 of them and get into a relationship. Have them review your resume. Have 2 resumes. Have 2 resumes. And the reason for 2 resumes is because, especially when you get into somewhere around year 20 of your career, you've got a lot of different micro skills, right, that you can't necessarily put on a resume in its entirety. And I'm finding this out right now. So a good friend of mine has been looking for another job, and she was given the advice, hey, your resume, you got to change this entire thing, because to become proficient or skilled, there it is. Thank you, Tanya. To become proficient or skilled at something, to become an expert, takes 4 to 6 years, right? And that's why with doctors, it takes about 5 years to earn a specialty designation, right? That's literally the reason why, because you become an actual expert at that thing if you do it for 5 years, right? 5 years at 2,000 working hours per year is about 10,000 hours, which is the 10,000 hour rule, right? The average American works, if you work 40 hours a week with vacation, 2,080 hours a year. That's considered full time. Okay, so just unpacking that. So there are certain things for certain jobs that you want to have on and certain things for certain jobs that you want to leave off. So I would create 2 resumes, one with what you feel are your best and strongest suits, your best things, and then another one, and that's like either a 1-page or a 2-page resume. And depending on what field you're in, some fields like 1-page resumes, some fields like 2-page resumes. Then I would create one that can go as long as 10 pages with literally everything there is to know about you and every skill possible. Because what those headhunters will often do is take that bigger resume and condense it out when they're doing headhunting, so that you will have like 20 different resumes floating around out there, because company A finds it super important that this skill, and on a micro level, these other 4 skills to be applied. Company B has no need for those skills, but you have other skills that want to be highlighted as well. Right? So a good headhunter will want all of that information. So start compiling that information now. Okay.
I think a lot of people too might get nervous about like putting it out there and their current employer finding out and all these things. It's like when you go and talk to a recruiter, when you go talk to a headhunter, like they do it discreetly. They have connections. That's what you're paying for. It's like what's free for you typically, and sometimes you got to pay them, but it's like that's what you're getting with those guys is connections, and they can kind of discreetly get your resume out there. Yeah.
No, and that's a great point. That's a great point. And it's a good thing to kind of speak about how headhunters themselves get paid. So headhunters predominantly get paid by the employer on the back. Okay. A lot of times they make a percentage of whatever that salary is, and they get somewhere in the range of half up front and half at the end of the year. That's a typical headhunting experience. So if you're going for a job for $100,000, in a lot of cases, a headhunter's wage or salary or charge to that employer will be around $20,000, right? 25, 30, 15. I mean, the market's shifting around in this right now, but somewhere, let's call it 20,000 on an average, 20%. 10,000 would be date of signing, or 60 days in, 30 days in, to make sure that you stay. And then the second 10,000 would come at the 1-year mark, right? Because employers also, they don't want to go and spend $20,000 day 1 and then you quit day 2. And they're back to square zero, less $20,000. So they're actually behind the 8 ball pretty far. But yes, to your point, Austin, headhunters are exceptionally discreet, and they understand the need for that as well. Now, option B, if you love where you work, but you're still death by 1,000 cuts with this inflation rate. Option B is to start preparing your case. Start preparing your case to ask for the promotion, or not the promotion, but the increase in pay, right? Yep. And Suzette's saying some headhunters chop out good experience of greater than 7 years. So I put more on LinkedIn. Yep. Agreed. So sometimes people are told don't go too long in the distant past with your experience. I would say with resume number 2, go all the way down back to either college or high school. Literally everything you've done. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. Because you want that headhunter to be armed with every tool necessary to get you and lever you into the best place. Because don't forget, every dollar he gets you is 20 cents back in his pocket, literally. So if he gets you $10,000 more because he can lever this skill or that skill, that's another $2,000 back in his pocket and 10,000 in yours, right? Option B. If you're talking about me, yes, it is pretty far back. Are you calling me old? No, you're calling Austin old. Okay, I can deal with that. Austin is older than I am, by the way. He's got some age on me. But if we're talking about option B, step 1, and if you do it right, you should beat out the 18% average increase. If you do it wrong, of course you don't. Here's wrong. You walk into the boss's office and you say, "Hey, I want a raise." I'm not going to tell you why. I'm not going to give you any reasons. I'm not going to give you a reason that pertain to the company or any value it brings to the company. I just want one because I want one and things are more expensive. Yes, of course, that is the reason why we want to raise, because things are getting more expensive and we need to be able to raise our families and we need to be able to pay for things and we need to be able to buy clothes and food and shoes and all the things. But that's not the important part or the lever point for the employer. So first thing you do, if you do this right, I would stage it out over 60 days. I would go to the employer and say, "Hey, it's been a while since we've had a review." Right? And if it's been at least 30 days, say, what one thing am I nailing? Now, what 2 things can I improve on or show improvement on? Right? Doesn't matter what they tell you. Those 2 things are what they're watching. So yes, holistically, you have a job with all of these roles. But whatever it is they're bringing to the surface, that's what you got to nail for the next 60 days. Literally. You got to be a rock star. And you got to make sure you're tooting your own horn. You got to make sure that they're aware of your progress, and you got to make sure that they're aware of the value you're bringing to the company. Because at the end of the day, when you're an employee, it's a symbiotic relationship. They're going to give you money, but they're going to receive a certain amount of value back in return, right? That's really what it is, right? Now, over those 60 days, also research what a comparable position would pay at another company, right? Now, we all know that, well, I don't know if we all know this. I'm going to put it out there, that on Indeed or Monster or some of those different places, there are a lot of these teaser kind of salaries that are being put out there, right? Because employers are, I mean, literally, let's be real. Employers are putting out there, "Hey, this job can pay up to $120,000 a year." And then when you go and apply, the job only pays 80. Not that 80 isn't a great number. 80 is a great number, but it's significantly less than the 120 than what is said on Indeed. And that's okay. We still use the 120 number. I would find 3 places, right, within the industry if possible. Glassdoor is a great place to go to get a lot of this data and to find out other company particulars such as size, years, how old the company is to compare against your current company, all those things. Go to Glassdoor, grab a lot of that data, and have those 3 ready so that when you ask for the raise, it looks like this. "Hey, Austin, first, I love working here. I need you to know that. First and foremost. Second, the market has shifted for this position. My goal is to walk out of here with a win-win solution for that shift for both you as my employer, because I want to make sure I'm providing value, and for me as the person that's working here, because honestly, I love the culture. I love working here and I don't want to leave. Here's where we're at for our position right now. I am making $60,000 a year. This position is currently being hired in at $80,000 a year. We need to bridge that gap." And then shut up. Literally, shut up. And they may bring up points like, "Well, if you were doing this better or you were doing that better." Hey, Austin, 60 days ago, I came to you because I knew that I needed to provide a high level of value to my employer to be able to go for the ask, to get up to the market standard for this job. Never say I want to raise. Never say I deserve more. Da, da, da. None of that terminology. Use terminology such as market standard, right? Because it's repositioning and reframing, right? It's neuro-linguistic processing. I need to get to the market standard for this job for my family. 60 days ago, you said I was nailing this, but I needed to work on these 2 things. Have you seen marked improvement? Yes. Absolutely. I know you have, because I've asked for continued feedback during that time to make sure I was nailing it and getting it right. The value that my marked improvement provides to the job is in excess of the wage that this job is currently paying. And that's it. Like literally, that is it. And for the most part, employers are going to look at that and say, holy heck. Now, don't pin them into the corner where you must have an answer at that moment either. Right? Because some bosses, when you pin somebody into a corner, it's fight or flight. They're going to scratch your eyes out and they're going to tell you to go get a box and get out the door. I'm not kidding. Like, it happens. Like, I've literally heard of just the horror stories of this happening. What you want to do is allow them, because think about it this way. They're losing a portion of their budget to somebody they already have, which means that they can't go hire somebody else or they can't go do something else. We got to look at this from the employer's perspective as much as anybody else, right? They need to be okay with that, right? It's almost like in real estate when we go to a seller who has a price up here and we're asking them to do a price reduction to here to get in line with the market, right? Most people, myself included, I've done this myself as a seller. I feel like I'm losing money, right? So I need to go through the 7 stages of grief to become okay with reducing the price on the house that I bought that I'm now selling. Right? It's money we never had. And the employers are in no different boat, right? The market has moved. The cheese has moved. And now they've got to move with the cheese. A lot of these guys just don't know it. They understand the data. They get it. They hear it from HR. Hey, hiring's tight right now. It's hard to find qualified people. It's hard to find high experienced people. People are asking for a lot of money walking in the door. Blah blah. It's okay to, when you hear it abstractly or when you hear it from your peers in the business versus we're looking at an actual dollar that's a line item on your P&L for your department. It's different. It's different. They need to go through that time by themselves. And they need to come to terms with, okay, I'm going to need to relay my budget. And in a lot of cases, some of those employers, and trust me, Austin and I have had this conversation a couple of times just in the last couple of weeks. A lot of times that doesn't just mean a realignment for one person in the department. It means a realignment for several. So now they could be looking at a several $100,000 budget shift. The 3 people that they could have picked up is now only 2. But they still have 3 people worth of work to do. So now they got to go get that figured out, right? So don't back them into a corner. Allow time, right? But also make sure that there's a deadline. So how I would phrase this is, hey, Austin, I've just dropped a lot of information on you. And I do consider this job a partnership. And I don't think it would be a fair thing for me to say, hey, I need an answer today. But I also think it's not a fair thing going the other way if this just goes out there forever. Can we agree, today's Monday, can we agree that we're going to sit down at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 1 o'clock on Friday and wrap up this conversation? Right? Because on the employee side, you don't want the guy or girl just languishing this conversation out there and pushing it off forever. Well, I got to talk to HR and I got to talk to my boss. And I got to talk to You'll want it to go on for months, right? But you also don't want to push the person so hard that they have to make a snap decision. Because that often does not go well.
Yeah. Can I ask you a larger 10,000-foot view question?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've seen interest rates, right? I'm assuming the part that I missed, but we've seen interest rates go from like 3%, and then 30 days ago it was like 60 days ago 3% to like 4% to like now 5-ish, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then on the flip side, the February jobs report just came out, and we've seen inflation of 7.9, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so you had said it, like if you're buying a $300,000 home, you're staring down a payment $400 higher a month right now, and it's like that's what buyers care about, right? They care about their payments. Okay, but then you're also talking about the ability from a leverage standpoint as an employee-employer relationship of expanding and kind of people moving jobs and wages going up, right?
Yep.
So like, tell the bigger story. Like what do you think happens? Because we've got, so like, right, everything keeps going up and they're trying to slow it down with interest rates, but then at the same time, it seems as though, although I don't know that wages are responding dollar for dollar, but it seems as though wages are responding, or at least the potential of wages, right? You have the potential to respond and get your wages up. What do you think the story is? Like if you told the story for the next, you could pick a time frame, year, 2 years, 3 years. Like how does this story play out, do you think?
Well, and here's where I think that we're going to go with this. We're going to see the economy, the bigger part of it, the economy crest. And I think our GDP is going to continue to grow, but not nearly at that rate that we've seen in the last 24 months or 12 months. I mean, we had nowhere to go but up. I mean, our GDP from COVID to 6 months into COVID was down 25%, which means that 25% of everything that was being bought or sold just didn't happen, right? 25%. Most companies were operating or are operating on a very thin margin, okay? When you cut 25%, you're done. A lot of companies are just done, right?
Super significant. Yeah, agreed.
So let's take Kroger or Meijer or Walmart or any of those, let's call it grocery companies, right? The typical grocer, the percentage of profit on an item is between 1 and 1.25%. That's it. That's all Kroger makes. Kroger makes 1%. I know this. I worked there. I was a manager there for a summer. I was shocked when I saw like how much food and how much product Kroger, because first I was looking at it from the perspective of, wow, Kroger's got making a ton of cash. And then I looked at it because I was seeing all this product go through that I just didn't even know by standing in a store for 8 hours. But then on the other side of it, when I started looking over the P&Ls and when I started looking over the monthlies, I was like, oh, they don't make nearly what we think. Like those rents are super expensive. Those utilities are super expensive. Those freezers don't just freeze themselves, right? The wages are super expensive, and most of those are unionized labor when we're talking about Kroger, right? So that's a lot. So what has happened, part of what has happened was, let's take Johnson & Johnson as a good example, right? So inflation has gone up, and how a lot of companies have responded is we've got to raise our prices to cover the costs. But a company like a Johnson & Johnson, which just posted their best quarterly earnings report in the last 20 years, they raised their prices inexorbitantly because they're fearful of where inflation is going next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter. So they didn't raise the prices of the shampoo 7.9%. They raised it 30%. And that's the money going into the corporate pocket that is coming out the other side in this lagging wage growth. And that's where wage growth is still way below inflation at 4.6% overall, right? But employers can pay that money because they're preemptively taking profits in that they believe are going to have to go out the other side, which is the same reason why we ended the quarter pretty much flatlined on the stock market. We saw a horrendous January, February, right? With the Dow, the NASDAQ, all of it. Horrendous. But then all of a sudden, we're seeing all these quarterly earning reports come out. And it's like, that's not too bad. I mean, Apple just had their longest winning streak since 2003, like 11 days in a row. Why? Because they increased their prices against inflation that didn't materialize or has not materialized yet. And the difference is the wages. Right? So what I think we're going to see is in prices, guys, I mean, let's be real. Prices go up, they don't go down. Okay? Let's be honest. Everything goes up, nothing goes down. Now, quality will go up at the same price, right? And that's where like our I forgot the term for it, but like our standard of living, that's where it is. That's where our standard of living has increased generation over generation over generation. And prices in some cases have gone down in micro markets. But as far as a macro goes, prices are up. Here's what I mean by this. When my dad graduated high school, they had one car in the family, right? And that one car had to service my grandmother, my grandfather, my dad, and his 3 sisters, right? Today, it's not unusual for there to be 3 cars in a 3-driver family, a mother, a father, and a teenager, right? Now, the cost of those cars have gone up quite a bit. My dad bought his first brand new car. It was a Camaro. That guy with a Camaro.
You did look awesome in a Camaro. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. And he bought it for $2,900. That Camaro, if it was in restored condition or great condition today, is worth closer to $35,000 to $40,000. Even that Camaro, like that specific Camaro, has gone up in price, right? Today, the average used car sale has now eclipsed 25,000. The average new car sale has eclipsed 36,000 average. I remember when I got my very first brand new car. It was a Grand Prix. So damn proud of myself. I felt like I earned this thing. And it was like $23,000 fully loaded. Fully loaded. There's no possibility that car is under $40,000 today if they were still making Grand Prix. It's just not possible. There's no way. There's just no way. for the first time, we're starting to see standard of living move in a backwards capacity because of inflation. Right? We saw it a little bit with the last generation and millennials were hit the hardest with this, where we saw that recession in 07, 8, and 9, and a lot of kids were getting out of college and looking for that first job. And here was the problem, right? So let's say I am an engineer and I just got out and I'm ready to go kill it in the market and I'm ready to go make my 45,000 a year starting, which is where a lot of engineers started in that day. 55,000 if I was really cool, if I really negotiated hard and I did a good job with that. Great. The guy with 5 years plus the degree, he's willing to take that same job for 55 too. So as an employer, which one am I going to hire? The guy with 5 years of experience. Right? And that's where, when you look at the age ranges of unemployment in that old market, millennials hit almost 28% at one point. The average for a millennial during that entire time was 14%, but the average unemployment was 10. The young were disproportionately hit. And now that's come roaring back. And now those wages have increased because the market, of course, has been just on this tear for the last 10 years. Right? This is where this becomes important. Now is the time to either switch the job or go for the raise before the prices that the company has to pay on the other end, before Kellogg has to pay, the farm for the grains has gone up. Like, we're in that little space right now where companies have more profit, and it will go away before the end of the year because inflation is going to take that back down. Right? Many companies have accounted for this, and so their books look heavy. So raises can get approved now that will not get approved in October, November, December. Yeah. And Suzette, you are not wrong on that one.
God, what a fantastic! It's such an incredible segue to.
It is that is a really good segue, and that's an incredible pivot.
It's like what you.
Yeah. So let's look at that. So, and we've got 18 minutes. I am going to cover a little bit of real estate on this thing. There is an ongoing thought. There's an ongoing thought, and you hear this every day, right? We hear this every day. The market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a point in time. Yeah. And I mean, there was a point in time when like back in 18, Gary Keller himself, of Keller Williams, who's a brilliant man, was like, okay, guys, get ready for the shift. It's coming. Any day now. Anytime.
We started teaching it. Yeah,
we
started teaching really aggressively.
Books back open, and we started teaching about it to get in front of it because it was coming.
Yeah.
Next month. Yeah. Next month. Austin, not this month, but next month. And next month became next month, became next month, became next quarter, became next year, became what the heck is happening here? And I'll tell you what is actually happening here. What is happening here is two things. One, there's a fear that we're back in that same bubble that we were in 05 or 6, 07. Right? And sure, I mean, on the surface, home prices have exploded, especially these last 2 years. They've exploded. Sure. I mean, just from that perspective, I completely understand it. The second perspective is home buyers wish we were in that bubble. Because if I'm a first-time buyer, do I want to buy a home in 07 or do I want to buy a home in 08 and a half? 08 and a half, when the same home was on sale for 30% less. But here's the problem, guys. That was mainly due to crap mortgages, garbage mortgages. Check out this stat. In 04, 05, and 06, 1 in 5 mortgages were adjustable rate mortgages. 1 in 5 given. In 2019, 20, 21, it's 1 in 100. That's a big difference. So you got the guy with the adjustable rate mortgage, 1 in 100 is going to adjust up. And we know this right now, right? There's no possibility it'll adjust down because interest rates are higher than they have been in the last 5 years. So when that 1 in 100 adjusts, it's going to adjust up. And frankly, it's not going to adjust up that much, but it's still going to adjust up. And that person has the opportunity to get out of that mortgage. And to be fair, the average American has refinanced 3 times in the last 5 years. So he's probably out of the mortgage already. So the mortgage that was given at 4%, that was an adjustable rate. Now the interest rates came down to 3%. Shit, I'm going to lock this one in. And then they did. I got people on the team where it's like, we pushed them. It was like, hey, guys, Go refi. You're at 4.5%. Go refi. Right?
Let me ask you this, Mike. Do you think
Yeah.
that product comes back? Because like there hasn't been a need for it. It's like fixed interest rates have been so low that there's been no need for an adjustable rate. And as
I don't
interest
think
rates go up, do you think that product comes back in any
I don't
kind
think
of
so.
significance?
No.
No.
No. I think we've learned our lesson. Honestly, I think we do. Second thing we got to look at when we're popping open the hood and looking under it. Per the Wall Street Journal, the average American made more in their equity gain on their house in 2021 than they did at their job. Average job in the United States pays $54,000. Average house in the United States went up $55,000 in value. If I'm a seller or if I'm a homeowner and I've got, let's call it just $55,000 in 1 year, and we know the market went up incredibly the year before, right? And we know the market had been going up since 2012. So as long as I bought, 2011 really, as long as I bought a home in 2011 or above, I am positive a lot of money. I'm not willing to give that up. Period. I'm not letting the bank take that. I'm only letting the bank take it if I'm negative equity. Right? That's it.
Okay, can I put you in the mindset of a seller, and I want you to see how you respond to this. So a seller would say, "Okay, great, my house went up by $54,000. Okay, great, this is like the best time ever to sell high on my property and cash out on this, right? But where am I going to go? Like that, like we're hearing a lot of that. But where am I going to go? And so how? What's the conversation you would have with the seller there? How would you respond to that?
No, that's a great question. That's a great question. And there's an interesting dialogue going on. So, or an interesting thing that's happening. So before 2008, the average person lived in their home for 7 or 8 years, between 7 and 8 years. Today, the number is 13.2 years. And that's primarily the baby boomers, right? Who currently account for 40% of all sellers, right? Over the last 24 months. Now, the baby boomers are looking at this and saying, wow, even the ones with mortgages, my interest rate has gone down, my cost has gone down, but my income's been fixed. So I don't actually need to sell this house. So I'm just not gonna. Then they're withholding their properties from the market. Now, the ones that are selling, and we're talking about the baby boomers, those are heavy cash offers in the market. So they're winning houses, right? Boomers are finding places to go. Like my parents, if they sold their, like my parents' mortgage, I mean, I think they're at like 2.65% on the interest rate. When they bought the home, it was a 7% interest rate. I mean, think about that payment difference, plus all the years of payments they've made on that property. I think my dad only owes like $75,000 on the property, somewhere in that range. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of dollars a month of payment, not thousands, right? And they have looked at that and said, okay, we've looked at other condos, we've looked at downsizing into a 2,000 square footer, we've looked at this, looked at this, but we bought this property back when we could afford this property at a 7% interest rate. And look at this, the payment itself has been cut by more than 50%. So it's not like we need to sell. So we're just not gonna. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go do the kitchen, do the bathroom. And if we did need to sell, awesome. I got 400 grand in cash to play with. I'll just go buy that condo cash and box out every other buyer. On the other side of it, and to be fair, I just want to make sure that I'm completely upfront on this. We had almost 6.2 million home sales last year. So even though the market was very, very tight, inventory was not on the market very long, homes for sale were not on the market very long, it was the 5th highest number of homes sold on record in the last 70 years. 5th highest. So anybody telling me, hey, I can't find a house for sale, you know what? Your realtor ain't working hard enough. Not being offensive, just truth. Hey, we got 108 buyers under contract last month on houses to purchase those houses. 108. Anybody telling me that they can't find a house, that's just their agent not working fast enough. That's their agent not looking at the market on a daily basis. That's the agent not trying to find off-market properties and get in front of that. That's the agent not networking with other agents to be sure to lever their buyer's offer into getting accepted over the other buyer's offers. That's what that is. I'm not trying to be offensive when I say this. I will just speak the truth of what is real estate. There are offers out there that you want to accept as another agent. There are offers out there that you don't. And a lot of that is based on the reputation or your experience you had with that previous agent. If the agent was a jerk or the deals fell apart or any of those things, I don't want that guy coming back around a second time. So I'm going to do whatever I can do to get the other offers accepted by people that I know will provide me status updates so I can let my seller know so they don't freak out. Because at the end of the day, guys,
Yeah,
we are in a service business, right?
Yeah, if I can even add to that and let you behind the curtain a little bit, guys. Like, so let's pretend that we list your home, and let's pretend that whatever 6 offers come in. I'm just making up a number, right?
Yeah.
6 offers come in. It's not like at some point, like the offer matters, right? It's like you can't win every offer every single time because somebody might just outbid you, right? But what's really interesting is like a really great agent will get you into the conversation. They'll put you into the top 2 or 3. They'll put you in the position where someone could accept the offer. And that's through the conversation, the way they write up the offer, the way they negotiate the terms, the overall reputation, like all those things, right? And if you're in the top 2, at least you have a shot at it because then they're communicating back and forth with you, like it would take this or it would take this. And then at that point, you as the client, you have the option of saying no, or you have the option of saying yes, but a really great agent gets you into the conversation. Where's a crappy, crappy isn't the right word, but I can't tell you how many times I list a property and it's like, I don't even get a phone call. Just an offer just shows up in my email. It's like, I don't even know who this person is. Can you tell me about your client? Do they qualify? Can you have your lender call me? Can you do anything I have 5 other offers. Can you do something that would make me want to jump up and down about your offer? And needless to say, if an agent doesn't do that background work, you don't win the offer. Yeah.
Well, and here's one. I mean, this is going to sound like a terrible thing to say, but a couple of years ago, I mean, I had an offer that to your point, it showed up in my email, and it was the actual best offer, but it went to my spam. Guy didn't call me for over a week to let me know that there was an offer there. It went to my spam, honest to God. Didn't even see it, and no offense to him, but of course they didn't get the property. What are you going to do? What's that, Austin? You're on mute.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you hit it right on the head.
And what are you going to do?
It's like you're not going to take that offer.
Well, I mean, and especially.
Do you think there's Go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I guess my question is, do you think that there's a tipping point at some point that happens just with, like we've already seen, like this time last year, we might have seen a market where a great property got 20 offers, and now sometimes we're seeing that's down to 8 or 10, and I know it's still 8 or 10. So, by the way, if you're a seller, don't sit on the sidelines about that. That's a real number. Is there a tipping point that happens, in your opinion, that we flip the other way?
If we had no. I mean, and to your point, honestly, no. I mean, we just don't. We don't have the houses being built fast enough. We don't have the homes coming to market fast enough. We've got 2-3 phenomenon happening in the market right now. Home builders should be just building on a tear. Like they should be just ripping and roaring. And they're struggling because they're struggling to find material and they're struggling to find the people to put the house together. I mean, we've got clients that are being told by builders right now on what should be a 5 or a 6 month build. Hey, we're going to aim for 14 months. Mm-hmm. We're going to aim for 14 months. Don't make any plans to move. We're going to aim, literally. It's not we're going to give you a house in 14 months. It's we're going to aim. When I hear builders say that, I'm hearing 16 to 18 months. That's number one. That's not all cases. That's some cases. Number one. Number two, we've got the biggest generation of home owners that are just not selling their homes at the rate they would have 10 or 15 years ago for 2 reasons. One, affordability. I mean, between pensions and between retirement and between Social Security and those couple little multiple income source streams, the boomers are not having they're not needing to sell their homes. I mean, think about this. We've got, the 401k and the Roth IRA too, but the 401k is not an old product. I mean, it's only about as old as we are. It's like 45 years old, right? It's not an old product. So this generation is the first generation that actually has a 401k of substance. Like my dad has a 401k of substance, right? He doesn't need to move like the generation before him needed to into that next home. And because he doesn't need to, he's just not gonna. Another one is looking again at my parents. My dad's still climbing up on roofs, right? Each generation Our lives are getting longer, and our ability to live that life is getting longer as well. I mean, think about that. When we were kids, how many people did we know that were in their 80s or in their 90s and still spry enough to go do shit? But in today's world, again, we'll put it out there. My dad's 71 years old. He's up on roofs doing electrical work. I mean, this is just where we're at, right? And if he's doing that, then he can maintain his property. If he can maintain his property, he doesn't need to go buy that condo that he doesn't want to have anyway. So they're just holding onto their properties indefinitely, much, much longer, 10 to 15 years longer than normal. The second is we've got the largest generation by population in the home buying segment of their life right now. The first half of millennials. Okay, so check this one out. The average person that moved up into their second or third property, this is an interesting stat, only lived in their first one for 6 years. So even though the average was still 13 years across all Americans, the person that the move up buyer was only in their house for 6 years. Why? Because they have a massive amount of equity that they banked, and all of a sudden interest rates dropped during COVID. So all of a sudden they're looking at this thing saying, okay, I'm in a 250 right now. I've got 120,000 worth of equity because of the payments I've made and because of time and the property value going up. Do I do an addition? No. Interest rates just went from 4.5 to 3. That house at 500,000 that I was going to wait another 5 years to be able to afford, all of a sudden, it's almost the same payment as what I'm paying on my current house at 4.5%. So I'm not going to refi. I'm going to take my 120,000 equity and walk it over to this 500,000, do a 20% down payment at a much lower interest rate, like half of what I'm currently paying. I'm going to go buy that house, right? The early half of millennials on the other side are just entering the market. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, Mike, but home values have gone up and interest rates have gone up. Why are they still entering the market? Well, the other number that went up was rents. In 2 years, rents have gone up over 25%. This year, they're going up another 10. I mean, literally, if you call any apartment complex right now and you ask them, what are they leasing their apartments for? Okay, what leases were you signing a year ago? That number is different by 15 to 25%. It is what it is.
Well, and a lot of those guys are 30, 35 years old too. It's like they're coming into the years where they're going to start a family, or maybe they've already started a family, but now they want to expand the family. And like, it's like you're not going to do that in an apartment, right? If you can help it, so you have to buy the houses and pay for the house. You have to pay for it.
Yep. So I think the moral of this story is going to be pretty simple. We've got a ton of people that in 2019 were like, yeah, I'm going to buy a house. I know the market probably can't go up much more. And I know I missed the boat because I should have bought in 2014. And houses are now 15% more expensive, but I'm going to go ahead and buy it anyway. And they won. Those guys won in 19. Those guys today, they won. And in 2020, people come in and say, well, we probably should have bought a house in 19. And with interest rates really low because of COVID, I think I'm going to buy now. Well, in 2021, man, I should have bought a house in 2020. 2022. I should have bought a house in 2021. How many should haves are people going to let go by before they figure out that they need to go buy a property today? And when I say need to go buy a property today, here's what I'm talking about, right? You go buy the house for $1,500 a month. Put that payment out there, right? 200 of the 1,500 will come back to you in the form of a tax rebate. 300 of the 1,500 will come back to you in the form of paying down principal. Don't forget, guys, you're always going to be paying down principal. It's either yours or somebody else's. You're paying down somebody's principal. So that's $300 a month there. That's $500 a month. Plus, guess what? You can paint your door any color you want because it's your property. And that's a cool thing. It's an intangible, not a money-related thing, but it's a real thing. The next step is rents have gone up every single year, an average, this is a 30-year number, an average of 3 to 5%. So if you're renting that same property or renting any property, let's call it 1,500, 5 years from now, your rent will be just north of 2,100, but your mortgage will still be 1,500. So if you're looking for a way to deflect against inflation and hedge your bets, lock into a mortgage and stay there. And don't use it as a bank either. Don't pull the money out and go buy a car or pay off credit card debt or do any of those things. Adjust your living. This is really important, guys, and it's really important that you go after the raises and the increase and you get paid what you're worth. Here's an interesting stat that I read the other day. Great finance book. The bottom 20% of Americans as earners as earners, the bottom 20% spend 130% of their income every year. Yup. And they just keep going bankrupt and bankrupt and bankrupt. Now, when you actually break that out, people are like, the general advice is, well, guys, just spend less. But when you break out the actual costs, their living cost is $930 on average. That's not a high rent right now. Their food cost is $75 to $90 a week.
Yeah,
if you got one kid, that's a low number.
Yeah.
What are they going to cut? There's nothing left to cut. They need to go get the skills or ask for the raises or switch jobs, right? The next up 20%, live at 80%. So they can still barely afford to save anything for the future. Now, check this one out. The top 20% of earners in the United States, when you take out the billionaires, the top 20% of earners in the United States, the average earned was $175,000. Okay? Those people saved 56%, or do save 56% of their income on average for the future. 56%. So it's interesting. As income goes up, it doesn't necessarily mean you got to go spend more or keep up with the Joneses or do any of that garbage. It means you start hedging against your future. As income goes up, you have bought the ability to hedge the bets against the what ifs that statistically will actually happen. No one knew my mother was going to get MS 14 years ago and have to stop working almost 10 years ago. Nobody knew. Nobody knew that a two-family household would have to go down to a one-family household almost 10 years early. But my father was a smart man, and he hedged the bets by putting as many dollars as possible into the bank and not keeping up with the Joneses and not buying the flashy cars and not doing those other things that are frankly unimportant. A flashy car this year is worthless in 5 years because new models have come out with new tech and new things. So who cares? Okay. That is my soapbox for the week. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk, by the way. This has been great.
You give a TED Talk today on how to ask a raise.
Yep. We went over. Do we determine whether or not we're going to stay at the same company? If not, how do we go find a different company? If so, how do we ask for a raise properly without pissing everybody off and getting fired?
Yeah.
Right? And putting yourself into a position where you're definitely not going to get it. We talked about the unemployment data. We talked about real estate markets and the data. We talked about renting versus buying. We have covered a lot of ground, guys. And thank you for participating. Thank you for throwing your numbers and your guesses out there. We do this. Austin and I do this the first Saturday of every month, sometimes from New Orleans, sometimes from Royal Oak, sometimes from Novi, sometimes from Commerce. But we Dubai. We are. I've done it in Dubai. I've done it in Abu Dhabi. But the first Saturday of every month, guys, we do a deep dive into whatever it is that is going on economically and financially over the last 30 days that impacts you, real families. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I put the link in there. We do videos twice a week going over local market things. We going over cities and city data, as well as a lot of financial and economic stats. Next month, guys, bring us your questions. If anybody has anything that they want to hear, I'm going to put my email in there, and I will be sure to bring the noise and bring the research, as I always do. And we can talk through it on a number and fact based level. That's all I got. I'm done. What do you got, Austin?
I got nothing. You got any suggestions of where we should eat today?
Go to Cafe Du Monde.
Well, yeah, we're gonna get some beignets for sure.
Get a beignet.
The beignets are going down ASAP.
Yeah, 100%. All right, who are we rooting for here?
I don't care.
You're just happy to be there.
Yeah, just happy to be there.
Yeah.
No
All
horse
right,
in the race. It's good.
All right, guys. Any questions that you guys have, feel free. Shoot me an email. Shoot me a call. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Anything you got, I'm always around. It's what we do, right? That's the job. The job is to create the most informed public that are buying and selling real estate so they can make the best choices for their family.
Did you just say this is how we do it?
This is what we do.
Da-da-da-da,
This is how we do it. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Austin.
See ya.